When I was a teenager, I was expelled from home due to false rumors spread by my twin brother. Years later, after my parents had abandoned me, they came back demanding money once they saw my success. I am a 28-year-old woman who grew up with a twin brother. My brother and I received very different treatment from our parents. They seemed convinced that he was destined for greatness, while I was considered the black sheep, simply because I preferred playing sports and making friends over studying. This constant comparison was demoralizing and seriously affected my self-esteem from a young age. As a child, I watched my brother enjoy lavish birthday parties with his friends, while I was largely ignored. He had frequent sleepovers, but I was never allowed to have friends over. Honestly, I despised my childhood. The only family member who showed me any affection was my grandmother. She would visit, bringing my favorite chocolates and sometimes a few dollars to treat myself. Over time, this favoritism towards my brother escalated into emotional abuse directed at me. My parents mocked my grades and belittled my interests, making me feel like I could never meet their standards. Despite excelling in sports, they forbade me from participating in extracurricular activities, insisting I should focus solely on academics, just like my brother. This constant pressure was frustrating and made me feel helpless. In my sophomore year, I was grounded for having Snapchat on my phone. I hadn't done anything wrong, I just wanted to stay connected with my friends. However, my parents saw it as a severe breach of their trust and a serious offense. My friends and I had a major falling out, and it escalated quickly. They threw all my belongings around the room, took the doors off their hinges, and told me I wouldn't have any privacy as long as I lived under their roof. While my parents watched and did nothing, my twin brother, instead of supporting me, made things even worse. The negative environment created by our parents' unfair actions gave him the chance to exploit the situation to his advantage. He began lying about me, falsely accusing me of things I didn't do, just to avoid trouble himself. If he stole something, he would easily shift the blame to me, and since our parents were already inclined to believe the worst about me, they accepted his lies without question. He would demean me in front of my friends at school and make fun of my appearance. Despite this, I had a wide circle of friends because I was friendly and open to making new connections. My twin, on the other hand, struggled socially and grew resentful of my ability to interact with people, while he felt awkward as an introvert. His jealousy reached a peak during our 14th birthday party when none of his friends showed up. I don't know why his friends did that, but my friends took me out for ice cream and I had a wonderful day. This only fueled my brother's anger. To get revenge, my brother started spreading false rumors at school about me, portraying me as a spoiled brat and accusing me of physically abusing him at home. Since our parents favored him, they believed his accusations without question. Unbeknownst to me, he went to great lengths to fabricate evidence. He would intentionally injure himself, creating black eyes and bruises, and then show these injuries at school as proof of my supposed violence. He made up stories to explain the injuries whenever our parents questioned him. He would lie, claiming that his black eyes were the result of harmless activities like playing football with his friends. These fabrications began to gain traction, and soon people were buying into his distorted version of events. Whispers started to spread, and even my friends began to view me with suspicion. At first, I noticed subtle changes. Friends who once chatted with me in the hallways grew distant, and invitations to group hangouts became sparse. It was as if a switch had been flipped, and people were hesitant to associate with the supposedly spoiled girl accused of violence. One day, I found the courage to ask my former best friend why our relationship had soured. She confided that my twin brother had been spreading malicious rumors about me. She detailed the lies he had been telling, accusing me of things I had never done. I was stunned, overwhelmed by a mix of disbelief and betrayal. The ground seemed to crumble beneath me as I learned that my own brother, someone I had grown up with, was spreading lies about me. The betrayal cut deeply, leaving me with a knot in my stomach and a heavy heart. I confronted my brother the next day at school, but he chose to ignore me. I pleaded with him to stop lying, but he only smirked and told me I deserved to suffer alone. His lies and behavior began to unsettle me, and I wanted to talk to my parents, but feared they might believe him over me. The isolation was especially painful because I had always been open to making friends. It felt like my brother's jealousy-fueled lies were systematically dismantling the connections I had built over the years. Even teachers began to catch wind of the rumors, and it was as if I were living in an alternate reality. My true self was overshadowed by the malicious story spun by my own twin. What started as mere teenage gossip had evolved into a narrative that was shaping how others saw me. The nasty rumor quickly reached the principal, and my worst fear came true. He called my brother, our parents, and me into his office to address these allegations. My heart pounded as the principal demanded the truth. I hoped my brother would finally come clean, but instead he doubled down on the lies. He told the principal that the rumors were true, portraying me as a bully who attacked him whenever our parents weren't around. I was in shock, unable to believe that my brother was continuing this twisted story about me being angry and resentful because he received more love from our parents. Despite the falsehoods, he stuck to his story with unwavering conviction. My mum started crying, holding my brother as if he were a hero, while my dad tried to comfort him, praising his bravery and assuring him that he would be protected. As I desperately tried to defend myself, pleading with the principal that everything was fabricated, I felt like I was drowning in a sea of accusations. It was a struggle to stay afloat, as my brother insisted I was a violent person who took out my frustrations on him daily. My mom's tears flowed freely as she clung to my brother, casting me accusatory looks. It felt like I was up against a wall of belief in my brother's false narrative. The principal, firm and unyielding, reprimanded me harshly, stating that the school did not tolerate bullying and that these allegations were grounds for suspension. I begged him not to suspend me, but he shook his head, saying he couldn't ignore the accusations. "Please, just let it slide," I pleaded, tears streaming down my face. I tried to explain that I hadn't done anything to my brother, but the principal remained firm. "You'll be suspended for 10 days, he said, to set an example that bullying will not be tolerated. The weight of his words hit me hard, and I cried even more, begging him to reconsider. My parents, angry and embarrassed, dragged me out of the principal's office. I wanted to stay and plead my case, but they were resolute. As we left the school, I felt crushed by frustration and humiliation. When we got home, things took a dramatic turn. My dad abruptly started packing my belongings. I was stunned, confused, and had no idea what was happening. My mom asked him what he was doing, but he shouted that he couldn't allow me to live in the same house as my brother any longer. I fell to my knees, crying and begging my brother to tell them the truth, but he remained cold and unyielding. My dad continued packing, and when he threw the suitcase into the foyer, I clung to his legs, pleading for him not to throw me out. It felt like a nightmare unraveling before me. He told me that a bully like me didn't deserve to live in his house, and that he would ask my grandmother to come pick me up if she was willing to. It felt as though the world had collapsed beneath me. Surrounded by my scattered belongings, I was in shock, being expelled from my own home. Eventually, my grandmother arrived. She gathered my things, helped me into the car, and made sure I was buckled in before walking back to my parents' front door. She rang the bell, and when my dad answered, she started speaking. With steely resolve, she confronted him for the way he had treated me, warning him that any further attempts to approach or contact me would lead her to involve the police or child protective services. The severity of his actions against a child like me could land him in jail. My mother, attempting to shift the blame, claimed it was my fault, but my grandmother stood firm. She defended me fiercely, emphasizing that I was just a child who did not deserve such heartless treatment. It was the first time I truly felt the strength of my grandmother. She didn't yield to my parents, and unlike them, she trusted me. Eventually, we left my childhood home behind, a place that had been my entire world. The pain was indescribable. I remember lying on the bed, crying and refusing to eat, despite my grandmother's urging. When I told her what my brother had done, she was shocked but reassured me that she believed my side of the story. It was comforting to know that I had at least one person who supported me. When the 10-day suspension ended, returning to school felt like stepping back into a lion's den. As I walked through the familiar hallways, the judgment from my classmates was palpable. Whispers and sidelong glances spoke volumes. The false accusations against me still lingered heavily in the air. Meanwhile, my brother ignored me completely, having allied himself with those who saw him as the victim and me as the aggressor. Despite my attempts to explain my side of the story, no one seemed to listen. I was left feeling like an outcast, branded with an unjust label that clung to me like a shadow. I navigated the classroom, cafeteria, and corridors with a growing sense of isolation. The disdain and mistrust in the eyes of my peers made me a loner. I kept my head down, attended all my classes, ate lunch alone, and went straight home. Friends were a distant dream, and it felt like everyone wanted me gone. Throughout this, my parents never checked in on me. My grandmother consistently reminded me that this wasn't my fault and assured me that things would get better. Despite the challenges, I graduated high school with good grades and looked forward to college, hoping for a fresh start. It was in college that I first experienced true freedom. No one scrutinized my every move, compared my grades, or tried to compete with me. I met people who shared my interests and formed friendships that helped heal the emotional and physical scars from my past. During this time, I discovered my passion for content writing. Though I had always dreamed of being a writer, I was uncertain about its viability as a career. So I initially set it aside. To earn some extra money, I began freelancing, signing up on various platforms and landing jobs with prominent clients. This helped me build a portfolio while I was in college, and I never asked my parents for financial support. Upon graduating, I realized I could turn content writing into a full-time career. Thanks to the clients I had worked with and the professional relationships I had developed, I was doing well and was excited to pursue this path further. Working on multiple projects as a freelancer not only made me financially independent, but also gave me the freedom to travel the world as a digital nomad. Traveling helped me heal from my past, though it wasn't always easy. I saved diligently and took a leap of faith in myself. Over the years, I've explored many parts of the world, and there's still so much more to see. Throughout this journey, my grandmother has been the closest person I considered family. I adored her deeply. Though she was sad when I moved out, she understood my need for independence. Despite my busy schedule, I made it a priority to visit her on weekends. We often shared meals or sat on the porch, talking about everything from childhood stories to recent events. I would also spend entire afternoons helping with household chores or accompanying her to the local park for a leisurely walk. Recently, I completed one of the most significant projects of my career. Although I can't disclose the brand, I was fortunate to write blogs and product descriptions for them. After finishing the project, I asked the team for positive reviews on my website, which they gladly provided. I took screenshots of their reviews and posted them on my Instagram, knowing how significant this achievement was. As expected, many content writers reached out to congratulate me and even reposted my story to help spread the word. This led to messages from strangers seeking help with their websites. My relatives also noticed and reached out to congratulate me. Eventually, I was contacted by my college principal, who had seen the news and wanted to connect. I was doing really well in my career when I was invited to speak at a college seminar about building a career as a content writer. Although I was nervous due to my discomfort with public speaking, I decided to take the opportunity. Standing in front of the eager students and sharing my experiences felt like a full-circle moment. I talked about the challenges I faced and how I persevered through tough times. It was incredibly fulfilling to empower others and contribute to the writers' community. Some clips from the seminar went viral on Facebook, and it felt great to finally be recognized for my hard work. A week later, I was invited to appear on a local news channel for a show about the benefits of content writing. I was both nervous and excited. During the show, I discussed my journey, the significance of client reviews, and how a simple appreciation post can open doors to amazing opportunities. Reaching a broader audience and inspiring more people in the field was both humbling and exhilarating. After the show aired, I proudly shared some of the clips on Instagram. This was how my relatives and cousins discovered my career success, as my parents had never mentioned my achievements to anyone. The TV interview made its way to my parents, and shortly after, while working on another project with my phone on silent, I noticed a surge in notifications. I checked my phone and was startled to see 6 missed calls from my mom. It had been ages since she last reached out, so her name on my screen was a real surprise. I couldn't imagine why she would be calling now. Hesitantly, I returned the call, and she answered right away. I asked if everything was okay, and she began congratulating me. My dad, who was likely with her, joined the conversation and started asking about my life and well-being. I answered their questions, but it felt routine until they asked about my income. When I told them it was none of their business, my dad said that as family, I shouldn't be shy about sharing. I told him I was doing well financially, but then my mom mentioned their financial difficulties. Her next words raised my suspicions. "Mom, we're retired now and have been wanting to renovate the house for a while. It's in bad shape, but we have no savings left." "Okay," I replied, "your success has given us hope. After watching your TV interview today, we thought maybe you could help us with the renovations," she said. My dad chimed in, "After all, we're family. You shouldn't hesitate to share some of your earnings with us. We could really use your help." I was taken aback. "Are you joking? Why are you asking me for money after years of silence? I appreciate the congratulations, but I'm not going to help you out." My mom then accused me of being selfish and said I needed to support them as family. My dad added his agreement, which only made the situation more uncomfortable. As my parents, they certainly deserved to be taken care of, but I felt that this was the very least I could do for them. My frustration with the situation was so intense that I wanted to give them a piece of my mind. Instead of just arguing, I decided that I should teach them a lesson they wouldn't forget. After all, they had mistreated me for years and now seemed to think they could rely on me. I told my parents that I was willing to help them, but only if they met my demands. My dad, curious, asked what I wanted. Without hesitation, I laid out my condition. If they wanted my assistance, they had to publicly acknowledge in front of our family and friends that my brother was the mastermind behind the hurtful rumors that had damaged my reputation. I wanted them to experience the same humiliation they had inflicted on me by believing his lies and manipulations. I demanded that they take responsibility for their actions and admit the pain they had caused me. Upon hearing my seemingly impossible condition, my dad began questioning its necessity, while my mum argued that we could resolve this privately without involving others. But I stood firm. This condition was non-negotiable and a prerequisite for any future help I might offer. I told my parents that I was willing to help them, but only if they met my demands. My dad, curious, asked what I wanted. Without hesitation, I laid out my condition. If they wanted my assistance, they had to publicly acknowledge in front of our family and friends that my brother was the mastermind behind the hurtful rumors that had damaged my reputation. I wanted them to experience the same humiliation they had inflicted on me by believing his lies and manipulations. I demanded that they take responsibility for their actions and admit the pain they had caused me. Upon hearing my seemingly impossible condition, my dad began questioning its necessity, while my mum argued that we could resolve this privately without involving others. But I stood firm. This condition was non-negotiable and a prerequisite for any future help I might offer. Since I began seeking financial assistance, it's become clear that the truth needs to be addressed publicly, and that my brother should face consequences for his actions. Since this conversation, my parents have been calling me repeatedly, but I've been ignoring their calls. I'm starting to regret even returning their call that day. I'm wondering if I would truly be in a difficult situation if I chose not to help my parents at all. Update: it's been a whirlwind of a week since I last shared my story. The support and encouragement I've received from everyone have been overwhelming. It's comforting to know I'm not alone during this time, and that others agree I should avoid engaging with my parents or considering helping them after what they've put me through. I gave them an ultimatum I knew they couldn't meet, because I understand their love for my brother. Even if they've discovered the truth about his lies, I doubt they would ever hold him accountable in the same way they've treated me. Today, my brother sent me a hurtful text message after my parents tried to contact me again, and I refused to answer. He wrote, "Hey sis, it's been a while since I've seen you, and I can honestly say that life has been great without you. I heard that Mom and Dad reached out to you and you gave them an ultimatum that they'll never follow through on. You know they never really loved you and will never do anything to hurt me. I admit that I lied about you 15 years ago, but that was a long time ago. Stop being selfish and move on from the past. You're unmarried and childless. So why do you hold on to this? I wanted to help by covering the costs for their repairs and renovations around the house, hoping to do the right thing and show that I could be a better daughter. However, when I saw their message, it felt like a knife to the heart. Their dismissal of my struggles and the conditions I had set showed a severe lack of empathy. The attempt to guilt-trip me by focusing on my unmarried and childless status was incredibly insensitive. Their suggestion that I should put their needs before my own well-being was not only offensive, but also revealed how little they thought of me. Driven by frustration and a deep sense of justice, I decided it was time to reveal the truth that had been hidden for far too long. I wrote an email to my parents and close relatives, detailing the painful experiences of my childhood and the unfair treatment I endured while growing up in our family home. I described the strict and oppressive environment I faced under my parents' roof and how I was treated differently compared to my twin brother. The email also addressed the false and damaging rumor my brother spread about me at school, which severely impacted my reputation. I explained how my parents had discarded me, and without my grandmother's intervention, I might have ended up on the streets. At the end of the email, I included a screenshot of a message from my brother admitting to lying about me. I hoped this confession would finally expose the long-standing lies. I sent the email just an hour ago, and I'm bracing for the inevitable fallout once my parents and brother read it. I'll update you next on their reactions. It's been a month since my last update, and a lot has happened since then. Certainly, here's a revised version of the text. This month, as you can imagine, my family reacted strongly after receiving the email. My parents faced criticism from relatives who had previously been unaware of the extent of the favoritism and emotional abuse. Many family members reached out to apologize for not being there for me and expressed their regret. Meanwhile, my brother and parents bombarded me with increasingly abusive and violent text messages, prompting me to contact a lawyer. The lawyer sent them a cease and desist notice, warning them to stop contacting me or face serious legal consequences. This seems to have scared them into compliance, as they have stopped reaching out. My grandmother believes I made the right choice in exposing what happened and fully supports me. Her support means the world to me, and I'm grateful she has my back. In terms of updates, it has been 2 months since my last one, and I'm pleased to share that things are going well. Professionally, my content writing business is thriving, and I continue to receive invitations to speak at seminars and podcasts, which has strengthened my reputation in my field. I'm also very close to my grandmother. I recently took a short break from work to spend quality time with her. She's been into gardening lately and has taught me a lot about different flowers and herbs. I treasure our time together, whether we're sharing meals, having heartfelt conversations, or simply enjoying each other's company. Since the lawyer's letter, my family has not contacted me, and I'm relieved they're staying away. Personally, I've started therapy, hoping to work on my healing. I believe this will be my last update